It is August 1. I am here with Dimamzo. Say hi, mommy. Alright, so obviously it is August. It is Women's Month, which means that Woman Moment is back and in action. And so this morning, we are setting up for the total shutdown march. I've been tweeting about it consistently throughout July, and sharing some information as to why we are marching on this very cloudy Cape Town morning. But it's not just Cape Town that is marching, it is obviously the entire country. You would have seen online. I hope that you watched everything that was going on, and that on top of that you actually went to go march. But I'll catch up with you guys later. We gotta find, where everybody is. So I can't really show you guys everything because I ended up being a marshal. I found a private place to film. I don't know if you can hear this at all, but this march, this is my woman moment. That's as momentous as it can get. All of us are affected by gender-based violence. Nobody is exempt, myself included, and we deserve a better South Africa. So I'm just gonna sign off here and hope that if you're watching this, that you are marching, and if you couldn't march, that you do something. All right, that's
transgender and gender non-conforming people are here to deliver this memorandum to the government of South Africa. We, the women of this country, are aware that gender-based violence against women, non-conforming persons, and intersectional women has reached levels that are unacceptable and cause untold harm. We are also aware of the complex, multi-layered factors that have resulted in South Africa being counted amongst the highest-ranking countries with unprecedented levels of gender-based violence against women. We acknowledge that there have been numerous protests and activities undertaken by many non-governmental organizations and other interest groups in our society fighting this scourge. It is evident to us that without a total integrated action by all relevant segments of our society, as well as political will, nothing will change to eliminate this scourge. That is why, as women, we have been moved to rise, march and protest to demand an end to gender-based violence against women today. This document sets out a list of demands to the state. Its initial set of 24 demands that represents each year that the state has failed to ensure our constitutionally entrenched right to be free from all forms of violence since the establishment of our constitutional democracy. We believe that an integrated approach to fight against gender-based violence against women's courage, where different arms of government work together, has the ability to ensure better protection for women. We understand that the different arms of government have different powers and functions. It is not the intention of our memorandum to comprehensively set out which entity must do what. Our aim is to demand that the state must do everything within its power to enable us to realize our right to be free from violence, whether it emanates from public or private sources. We demand our right to be free from violence and an end to impunity for gender-based violence against women now. I'm going to ask our deputy convener and my co-dreamer in Cape Town, Londeka, to read us the first 6 demands.
Sanbonani? Ninjani? Sanbonani? Ninjani? So demand number 1. A strong message from the Office of the President that gender-based violence against women is pervasive and widespread, that it cannot be tolerated at any level of society. This includes a commitment never to appoint any individual who has been implicated or minimized the causes and consequences of gender-based violence against women to cabinet or to lead a state institution. Further, a commitment to establish and drive a multi-stakeholders and comprehensive process to address and reduce gender-based violence, to commit and to announce the date of a national gender summit on before 30 August. And the deadline for that is the 9th of August 2018. Demand number 2. A review of past national action plans to end gender-based violence with a view of understanding why they failed. The Ministry of Women in the Presidency to be seized with the convening of a national process to lead the review. The terms of reference must include the participation of all relevant stakeholders, including the relevant government departments and the civil society formations. The process must also identify the individuals and institutions that are causing the failure and make recommendations. And the deadline for this is the 30th of September 2018. Yes. Demand number 3. The development of a criteria and screening for appointing individuals who are tasked with leading the efforts to end gender-based violence. This includes the development of a criteria that seeks understanding This includes the development of a criteria that seeks individuals who understand that gender-based violence is a form of discrimination. It is overwhelmingly gender-specific and it happens to women because they are women. It must also be recognized that the efforts to end gender-based violence must be led by women and communities affected by gender discrimination, includes transgender and gender non-conforming persons who have worked with issues of gender-based violence and have the understanding of the role that the state has to play in preventing violence occurring and responding to violence once it has occurred. The deadline for this is the 30th of September 2018. Demand number 4. A development of a national action plan on gender-based violence whose terms of reference will be determined by the review process envisioned under demand number 2. The plan could be in the form of an update of the action plans that were not implemented. Furthermore, gender diversity as it relates to transgender and gender non-conforming persons must be integrated in the National Action Plan on Gender-Based Violence to broadly combat and prevent gender-based violence and hate crime. And the deadline for that is the 30th of October 2018. Demand number 5. Resurrection of Joint Monitoring Committee on the Quality of Life and Status of Women. A prerequisite for committee membership is a proven track record on working on gender-based violence against women and gender diversity issues. The committee must develop a legislation scheduled to assess the implementation of current legislation aimed at combating gender-based violence against women with a view to determine the role players by gaps in the law in the failure to implement the law, to the extent that there are gaps and undertaken law reform processes. The deadline for this is the 30th of October 2018. Demand number 6.
Long overdue, Londi.
Yes, yes, it is. Demand number 6. The establishment of accountability and oversight mechanism to ensure that the adopted national action plan is implemented. This includes the establishment of an independent ombudsman on gender-based violence against women, a special parliamentary oversight committee, a specific inquiry mandate for the South African Human Rights Committee, Commission for Gender Equality, and Commission for the Protection of the Rights of Cultural, Religious, and Linguistic Communities. The deadline for this is the 25th of November 2018. So I'm going to hand over to Tracy to read the rest of the memorandum. Tracy is also part of the Cape Town Coordinating Committee.
Ulweni. Demand number 7, focusing on the prevention of re-victimization and re-traumatization through the establishment of a national and properly resourced hotline that will enable survivors to request and receive information on support and services. Parliament needs to pass the Combating and Prevention of Hate Crime Bill to recognize and afford greater legal protection to transgender and gender non-conforming people who are often survivors of hate crimes perpetrated against them based on their gender identity and or gender expression.
Yes.
Demand number 8, provision of prevention services and information on GBVAW with a view to raising awareness on the different forms of GBVAW, preventing violence and changing attitudes. This includes, among other things, updating the school curriculum to include content that informs learners about GBVAW and gender diversity. Demand number 9, training for legislators to provide them with information on key features of drafting legislation on developing laws aimed at combating GBVAW and promoting gender diversity and equality. The training programs must include international human rights standards and model laws on legislation on GBVAW and gender diversity. Demand number 10, consistent sentencing and enforcement of existing laws. In particular, the minimum sentencing legislation in sexual and domestic violence cases. The judiciary stops using harmful and negative gender stereotypes that reinforces a secondary victimization and legitimizes practices like victim blaming and slut shaming. Furthermore, we demand that sentencing guidelines be developed for both magistrates and high courts, including sexual offences courts. Demand number 11, the prioritization of provision of legal aid to victims of GBVAW, including those who want to hold the state accountable for its failure to protect them for violence and those who have been subjected to lawsuits for publicly naming perpetrators. And demand number 12, sensitization and adequate training provided and sensitization of resource providers regarding diverse gender identities and LGBTQIA minorities on discrimination broadly and the causes and consequences of GBVAW in particular, for members of the judiciary and the program on appointment, and should be offered on a continuous basis. The program must include emerging progressive human rights standards and jurisprudence on GBVAW and gender diversity, various manifestations, and also highlight decisions that have failed to uphold women's rights to be free from violence. Sorry.
Demand number 13, the provision of psychosocial support for victims and survivors of gender-based violence. Due date 14 February 2019. Demand number 14, a commitment to beginning a process to develop a comprehensive law on addressing gender-based violence. This includes engaging the South African Law Reform Commission to begin a consultation process. Deadline 27 February 2019. Number 15, recognition that intersecting forms of oppression heightens women's vulnerability to gender-based violence, and that these factors are taken into account during investigation, prosecution, and sentencing. These include race, sexual orientation, gender identity, socio-economic status, and nationality. Deadline 01 February 2019. Demand number 16. The existing Tutuzela Care Centers resource developed and vacant posts must be filled. The TCCs established as places of safety and care for all gender identities, being it cisgender women, transgender women, and or gender non-conforming persons who are survivors of gender-based violence. Deadline 21 March 2019. Demand number 17. Introduction of an automated national registry for protection orders. Deadline 31 March 2019. Time's up. Demand number 18. Provision of shelters and interim housing to enable women to escape abusive relationships. 2017 April 2019. 27 April 2019. Freedom Day. We need to be free too, so government needs to make sure we have shelters to run to. Demand number 19, registration of gender-based violence cases in hospitals and the provision of information on support services available to survivors. Deadline 01 May 2019. Demand number 20, publication of a monthly list of police stations and police officers who have been reported to the Independent Police Investigative Directorate for failing to provide services to survivors of gender-based violence. June 16, 2019 is the deadline. Demand number 21. Adoption of a policy to make prosecutor-led investigations of gender-based violence cases compulsory in order to provide guidance and assist in the gathering of evidence in order to ensure that cases are taken to court. Deadline 30 July 2019. Demand number 22. Publication of a national training schedule on gender-based violence and gender diversity for all relevant government departments, including Home Affairs, Social Development, Justice, Safety and Security, as well as Health. Deadline 30 August 2018. Demand number 23, 2019, yes. Demand number 23. A sustained media campaign for 365 days by all departments led by Government Communications and Information Systems, providing information including awareness. Now is the deadline. Now. Demand number 24. Transgender and gender non-conforming people also have different safety and security needs than those of cisgender women based on how laws, policies, practices, and systems are conceptualized based on gender binaries for cisgender women and men as well as boys and girls. E.g., Transgender women and GNC people are raped in correctional facilities and detention centers in the criminal justice system by virtue of their legal gender marker. In combating gender-based violence comprehensively, government should ensure that laws, policies, practices, and systems are sensitive to gender diversity to protect the bodily and physical, as well as the psychological and emotional integrity of transgender and gender non-conforming people from gender-based violence. To secure this object, government should focus on reviewing and amending gender recognition laws, pass the Combating and Prevention of Hate Crimes Bill, pass the draft social inclusion policy for higher education institutions, and finalize the comprehensive sexual education plan, which all recognizes transgender and gender non-conforming people and challenges these demographics facing aligned to combating and preventing gender-based violence. And the deadline for that is now. The 24 demands for each year of our constitutional democracy, we are not free until all of these demands are met. We are ready to deliver this memorandum, but I understand that there is a challenge with regards to who is receiving the memorandum. We sent this memorandum to the Office of the Speaker, as well as to the Office of the President and to the Chief Justice for the Supreme Court. We believe this government needs to begin to take women seriously. And therefore, we want to see this memorandum treated with the level of the sweat, energy, and tears that women have put into it. And therefore, we request that the high officer of this institution, a high representative of this institution, present themselves to receive this memorandum. The Speaker of Parliament, a Deputy Speaker of Parliament, the Chair of the National House of Provinces,
You see, we are in recess.
We understand that.
And both the speakers...
Please give the mic so that we can understand.
Good afternoon, ladies. Okay, good afternoon, ladies. My name is Regina Mhlomi. I am the Sergeant at Arms in the National Assembly, an official of Parliament. Must I start over? Good afternoon, ladies. My name is Regina Mhlomi. I am the Sergeant at Arms in the National Assembly. The presiding officers, both on the National Assembly side and the NCOP side, are attending meetings both that relate to Parliament and that relate to the ANC. Okay.
Very important meeting. It's a homicidal one.
This is a very, very important meeting. We don't care. They must come to this meeting.
Bayasiphela.
Wathinta mapasi.
Wathinta mapasi. Wathinta mbokodo. Wathinta mapasi. Wathinta mbokodo.
If you can give me a chance.
This is serious.
I am an official of Parliament. I have been requested to come and do this today. I am not a politician, and therefore if I am sent to come and receive this memorandum on behalf of the Speaker, that is what I am supposed to do. There is no way that I could have said, no, Speaker, you must do it yourself.
Fina City, she must come. We are tired of this authoritarianism. Tell that
If I can explain the role of the officials in the National Assembly table.
I'm not interested in that. We are tired. Speaker, 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 speaker. Asindawo abasizawumapi speaker size We give you power. This undermine.
So is the speaker here at
We
all?
made an appointment with the
So there's another march coming after us. Is the speaker going to be here for that march?
We will hold you.
So, we see, we as women, we see today that the government is not taking us seriously. We are here as women because we want to die no more. We want to die no more. The meetings about investments, we won't be here to benefit from these investments and whatever else government is doing, because we are dying at a rate of 1 woman killed every 4 hours. 41% of the reported rape cases in this country are children under the age of 9. If as a nation we were ever confused about consent, we know those children did not consent. So Mama, accept our anger. Accept our anger and relate that anger to Parliament and to the Speaker especially.